everybody, what's going on? You're watching The Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Special guest in the building, it's Drake Bell.
What's up?
What's up, man?
Thanks for having me, man.
You got it. Good to meet you.
You too.
Seems like a pretty good time for you. You got some new tunes coming out.
Yeah,
doing
it's
your
exciting.
thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the music. We were talking off camera. You're hanging out in Mexico City. Long 15-hour day just for one song and one video. How did it all turn out?
It was really cool to be able to shoot the music video for Fuego Lento in Mexico City. You know, I have such a big fan base in Latin America, and this is the first song where I've actually sang in Spanish, so it's sort of a Spanglish thing, you know. And yeah, I put out a few records, a couple records a few years ago, and they really worked down there. My band went down to play, and we ended up playing these massive concerts, you know, thinking we were going to go down and play kind of the shows we were doing here, you know, 1,000 seats, 2,000, whatever, and we get down there and we're doing these, you know, amazing sold-out shows, like 10, 20,000, all these big festivals and everything, and the music was really translating down there, and people were really receptive to it. And so I've been going down there and kind of cultivating that audience over the years, and I would do cover songs in Spanish, and the fans would love it, but I'd never done anything original. And so this is sort of my first venture into that, and they're really enjoying it, and it's the fans are loving it, and it's taken off. It's really cool.
Well, it's amazing to see how your music spreads, especially in the digital age. Like, I'm sure you never imagined that Latin America would be huge Drake Bell fans. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of interesting when you step outside of the United States. I mean, Latin America's huge, but really all over the world. It's just a kind of a different. It's just so different when you step outside of the U.S. You know, it's kind of, you know, because we have so much and we're inundated with so much. I think that there kind of becomes sort of a the fan becomes jaded. You know, it's like you know, and it's like you have to prove yourself every time. Really, like each record, you have to prove yourself. In other parts of the world, you know, if they're your fan, you could put out a polka album, and they're going to be like, "All right,
we're there for you.
We're here for you." You know, we don't get it, but we'll go with it. You know, so yeah, so it's just interesting to kind of see the different fans all around the world, you know.
And it's kind of the "what have you done for me lately" thing too.
Yeah,
because it's like thinking about your career, you've done so much, but it's like, all right, what's Drake doing next? Like, when's the next record coming out? You know, how do you deal with that?
I try to put more records out.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's what's great about, you know, being an independent artist, not being signed, just being able to, you know, whenever you want to, go into the studio and cut whatever you want. You know, I don't know if I was signed to a label if I'd come to them and said, hey, now I want to make a more reggaeton album where I'm singing in Spanish, and it's a completely different sound than anything that I've really done before. If they would have been into that, you know, or if they would have stifled it, or you know, I just, you know, being free to be able to just go in and say, okay, this is what I want to do today, and this is what I'm going to record, and you know what, I don't need to wait to finish an album to put it on. I can just get it to my fans immediately. Yeah, it just kind of makes, you know, takes the power away from these labels that they used to have where, you know, oh man, without them I can't release music, and I can't get to my fans, and I can't, you know, because I lived in that era where there was really no social media, there wasn't, you know, you depended on, you know, getting a record deal.
Right, you had the gatekeepers that were doing
everything. You know,
yeah.
And there was no way you were going to get music out to your fans. Were you going to go print a bunch of CDs and sell them out of the trunk of your car?
Or just walk around the city,
Exactly, that's what you did, you know, and now I can just press a button and my music's to all of my fans all over the world, you know, so it's, it makes it possible to be able to go in and say, hey, I want to do a record like this, while simultaneously saying, oh, I want to do this more hip-hop thing over here with these producers, and then I want to do, oh, I'm doing kind of more pop stuff with these guys over here, you know, and I'm able to just do whatever I want and be completely free creatively, instead of having somebody say, no, that's not what the record's supposed to sound like, this isn't what we're working on right now, this wasn't the plan, you know, it just hasn't, because as an artist, you know, it's just, you want to be able to just be free. Yeah,
you don't want to be stifled in any way. Yeah. And so much has changed since people were just holding things down. So it's cool that you can do this type of music or do something completely different.
Exactly, yeah.
And you know, the other thing with your story too, like just thinking about your whole musical journey, like the music was always there for you throughout the way, but when did it become more of a bigger thing for you, and who were some of the influences?
I mean, it's always been, you know, such a I've always just wanted to be, you know, growing up I was just like, man, I want to be Elvis. You know, I wanna be
Yeah, I mean, why
Brian
not,
Setzer,
right?
yeah.
Not a bad gig.
And then playing guitar, you know, I was just wanted to be Brian Setzer, and I loved music. You know, starting bands when I was a kid. I think I started playing guitar at like 10 or something like that, and then putting bands together and trying that whole thing. And
Yeah, that was what you did as kids, you know?
yeah, yeah. And then I started getting into, you know, I wanted to be a guitar shredder and all this stuff. Actually, I started playing drums, and then I realized, wait, I don't want to be in the back of the band.
You want to be the front man.
Yeah, and I want to be able to like create the music too.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to kind of be, you know, so I'm like, man, I gotta learn an instrument, and so I picked up the guitar and wanted to become a guitar shredder, and then started getting turned on to like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Queen and Bob Dylan and all these more, you know, people who focus more on the songwriting than really being like, you know, just like a great player or something. And so I started focusing. I was like, oh man, I gotta write songs too. Okay, so then I started writing songs and putting bands together, and that whole thing. So I mean, it's always been a part of my life. You know?
So how?
But yeah, so those are the major influences growing up were Elvis, the whole, you know, all the Sun Records cats, and Jerry Lee Lewis and Roy Orbison and Buddy Holly, and then everything of the 60s and 70s, you know. I love Steely Dan, I love the Beach Boys, the Beatles, Queen, Led Zeppelin, all that stuff.
So you really had an appreciation for the classics.
AC/DC, yeah, oh, absolutely.
So who introduced you to all those different
I think
groups?
my dad, mostly that was just what was playing around the house, and then as I was going to school and finding out, you know, I was really into punk rock and ska and like all this stuff growing up, but it was mostly not what was on the radio. It wasn't like, you know, listening, it wasn't like Blink or anything.
Right.
I was like more into like Sex Pistols and the Buzzcocks and all these, you know, more crass and like the Exploited and kind of the like the earlier punk bands that were kind of a little before my time, you know. So everything for me has kind of always gone back in time, you know. Even like my first car was a '66 Mustang.
Nice.
Second car was a '61 Galaxy.
Oh wow. You're just an old school guy.
Yeah, everything. I try to just like, you know, form my life to be like I'm living in the past. So I've always been, you know, even movies and film and television and all that stuff. I've always just loved more classics. You know?
That's awesome. So how did that influence you once you got going with the acting at such a young age?
I don't know. Maybe just, I think mostly entertainers like Elvis and Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, people who were kind of the Renaissance men. You know, they could do everything. They could, you know, go make a movie and then go make a record and go tour, and everybody saw them as just entertainers.
Right.
You know, they weren't
not just
they
one
weren't
thing.
saying, wait, well, it's so weird that Dean Martin's in a movie right now.
Yeah.
It's so weird. He's a singer. Like, why is he making a movie?
We were totally fine with
why
it.
is Frank Sinatra making a movie? Why is Sammy Davis Jr. in a movie? Now he's on a TV show, and now he's over here doing, you know, Dean Martin was a host of his own TV show, like a Saturday Night Live sort of sketch show, and then he had, you know, all the movies with Jerry, and then all the serious movies without, you know, and then all the records and tours and everything, and everybody kind of saw these people. Elvis, same thing, you know, it was, nobody thought, I mean, maybe at the beginning, but once it became, you know, Elvis the actor, it was like, okay, well, yeah, that's like,
It's just a natural
that's obviously
progression.
what he should do. He's
Yeah.
an entertainer. Nobody saw it as, and now it's kind of, you know, different, you know, people have to break through a little bit more, you know, it's very rare that you get a Miley Cyrus or something that's so accepted, you know, as both, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, obviously, you know, we accept her as like this pop star, but she also was on a television show and she was an actress and stuff. You know, usually it's like, what is this actor trying to do being a musician now? You know, so it's very hard for someone to be like Miley, where it's like seamless and kind of like everyone just sort of accepts it nowadays. You know?
And it's just, I'm sure for you, just a frustrating thing to deal with, because like the acting thing was good to you, it was a nice chapter, but it's also, you're a creative guy, you want to do other things, so how do you contend with all that?
Well, I just try and, I don't know, I just try and do as much as I can, you know, I just love, I love being creative, you know, even all aspects, you know, directing, I've directed a bunch of the episodes of my show, and producing and writing and all of that. I just love creating, you know, that's what's so great about music, is you're able to create your own music and your own thoughts and your own emotions and feelings.
Nobody's controlling that at all.
Exactly, you know, you're not interpreting somebody else's material and hoping that you're doing it justice or doing what they were expecting, or
Right.
you know, from the piece. And you know, you can kind of just get in there and go, oh wait, that's right, I get to
pull the strings here.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to somebody hands you a script and they want it a certain way.
Yeah,
and you
and
just gotta
also
hit
it's more
that.
gratifying too. You know, if you get a laugh on a show, it's like, okay, cool, like, but you know, you're kind of congratulating the writer, like, dude, that
Right.
like, hey,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
job, man, good job. Like,
It's
that was a
not
good
yours.
joke, you
Yeah.
know. But if somebody's singing your song while you're at a concert, while you're singing and everyone's singing along,
That's
you're
real,
like,
yeah.
oh, rad. I wrote this in my bedroom and was wondering if anyone was going to like this. And okay, now you're all singing it. That's cool. I'm doing something right. You know?
I'm sure it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I was looking up part of your story, Jerry Maguire, all the way back in the
Yeah,
day. I did
wild,
not
huh?
realize that. What do you remember from
Yeah.
that experience?
That was awesome. I mean, I got to work with legends, man.
Yeah.
I got to work with Jerry Maguire. I got to work with Tom Cruise. I got to work with Cuba Gooding Jr., Renee Zellweger, Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, yeah.
James L. Brooks, you know, and that was so cool for me because, like I said, growing up on classic TV, you know, Taxi was one of my favorite shows, and Mary Tyler Moore, and all these shows that James L. Brooks was involved in, and then I get to be on and I remember I would always see his name, you know, James L. Brooks, on the credits of these TV shows that I would watch. And I think I was only 9 or
Yeah, you must have
something
been
when I was in
super
the
young at that
movie,
point.
9 or 10. And so when I got onto the set and I saw his name, I was like, wait a minute.
This is the
I know
guy.
that name from all the shows that I watched. So when I was talking to him, I was like, wait, you make all these my favorite shows. And he's like, that's impossible. Like, I make TV shows, maybe The Simpsons? Like, no, he's
You're
like,
like,
I
no,
make
no, no.
TV shows from... He's like, that's not possible. I'm like, no. Then I started just rattling off all these TV
That's
shows, and he's
awesome.
like,
You blew
what?
his mind, I'm
You
sure.
know, and the characters and this and that. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, I saw your name on the chair and I recognized it because I always see it on those shows. It tripped him out that some 9-year-old knew like all these shows
I'm
from
sure
the
it
70s.
did. Yeah,
and 80s,
you
know.
certainly weren't in the norm in that
But-
department.
But no, so that was the experience of Jerry Maguire, was just being able, you know, at such a young age, being able to watch all these legends and how they worked, and seeing how Tom Cruise, you know, acted, you know, how he was with his crew and with the fans, because we were shooting in a really open area, so it was very easy for fans to kind of just walk right up to Tom and not have any security or anybody kind of
Wow. Well, that
around
was a
and
totally different
everything,
time too,
and
right?
Yeah, it was, but it's I don't know. I don't know if that was just how they liked the set or whatever, but he was very approachable, and being able to see him interact with fans and the crew, and it was just it was something really cool to see for like a young actor at my age
Totally.
to go, oh, hey, he's like, you know, he's pretty much the biggest star in the world. You know, when you think movie star,
That's the guy.
Tom Cruise
Yeah.
is the one that pops into your
Easily.
head.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Dictionary movie star, Tom Cruise's
Yep.
face. You know, nobody's bigger. You know, you just have to put his name on a poster, and it's gonna.
I mean, think
done.
about all the
You don't even need to know the.
Impossibles that we
You don't
have,
even need to know
right?
the story. It's gonna gross $200 million. You know, but seeing somebody that big, you know, be so gracious to his crew and to the other cast members and to the people who would walk up and ask for autographs while he's in the middle of conversations with the director or producers, or you know, he's obviously busy, but this person finally got the. This is the moment that I had, and I'm sorry, I didn't know I was interrupting, and you know, where some people would be like, hey guys, come on, I'm
in the middle of
you
something.
know,
Yeah.
dude, he would just turn right around, autograph,
That's cool.
nice little funny, you know, banter, you know, they'd say, oh, I loved you, and no, thank you so much, blah, 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 whatever. So nice, and then just go right back to what he was doing as if, you know, that never happened, and he just picks it right back up, no, not even flustered, and blah, 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 blah. And it was just so cool to see, like, oh, wow, you know, because being in this business, I've seen people who aren't even half the size, you know, half the star.
Absolutely.
Just
Be a complete
like,
jerk.
Be like, don't, you know, I don't talk, you know, I don't have my coffee, or just, you know, just being kind of like,
And you're like, really, man? Come
nonplussed
on.
about
Yeah.
people and like whatever and stuff, and I'm like, man, you weren't half the star this guy is, and he's so cool, you know. So it was you know, it was cool to see that kind of at such an early age and such an early stage in my career. You know?
Yeah, very interesting for you. How about the Seinfeld experience? I know that was
Another
small
one. That's
too.
another good experience. Kind of the same thing where, you know, getting onto a set with people who are huge. I mean,
right. At that point,
I mean, that they were. I was on the 4th to the last episode.
Wow.
So I mean, it was the #1 show
Yep.
on TV, and they were the highest paid actors on television. I mean, it was they were breaking records and everything, and I came on. I was in one scene. I had a couple lines, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And I was a kid, but Jerry and Jason and Michael, everyone was so nice. Michael even came in before the show. Michael Richards, he came in. He's like, "Hey, just want to make sure you have a great show. We're about to go." I'm like, I'm just a kid that has like one line, But he went to everybody who was on the show,
Like,
every guest star,
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we're going on in 10. The live audience is in here. Let's have a great show, and kind of like rallying everybody, and not just his crew, but like even just the guests, the day players, and people who were, it was really cool to see, to kind of see that, because you see other people who are in the same position or even less who just.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are extras. Like, we don't talk to the extras. It's like, or we don't talk to no, that's not, that's beneath me. I don't know where that comes from, but probably a lot of insecurity, but to see these, these just great, these amazing entertainers just be so cool and gracious and just like approachable and then you like Jason came on to another movie I was on recently, just a couple years ago, so I got to work with Alexander again, and he's so talkative. He's got so many stories, and you're sitting at the lunch table, and he makes it to where nobody feels, because everybody's got Seinfeld questions.
Sure.
Everybody's got these things they want to ask these big guys, and they're like, oh, dude, they probably get asked this all the time.
He's talked about
it
his whole
happens to
life.
me, everyone's like,
Absolutely.
oh, the scene of Jerry, can you say hug me, brother? Can you do this? And everybody probably thinks that it drives me nuts, but I'm like, of course. Like, I've been in that position
Right.
where
You get it.
I'm like, oh man, I want to ask him about this episode, but he probably hates it,
Right.
But he made it to where everybody felt so comfortable going, okay, dude, in that one thing, or was this story really true when this happened or whatever? And he just made it to where you knew it was okay to come up and ask him anything you wanted,
Right.
and he was totally cool with it.
That's
and so
good to hear.
being able to see those types of actors and entertainers is just, it's really cool.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's very refreshing, yeah.
So you were working with adults a lot, and then you enter this part of your career where you're working with kids, and you get into the whole Nickelodeon world. So how do you first jump into that whole thing?
Well, luckily, I started on the Amanda show, and it was sort of an ensemble cast.
Right.
So it was really just me, Amanda, and one other girl, and then the other cast members were adults. So it was sort of this kind of mixed thing. But that was a lot of fun to be able to get into that world, because growing up, I was, alongside of music and all this, and I was obsessed with voices and accents and characters, and I would grow up. Watching SCTV and Saturday Night Live and the Carol Burnett show and Kids in the Hall and all these great sketch shows I loved, and I would always be in the house trying to do all these different accents and characters and voices and everything. So to be able to get onto a show where my job was to do all of these voices
Just
and
mess
characters,
around with it,
I
yeah.
mean for the audition I had to do 3 characters. They said, create 3 original characters and come in and do your own bit. They didn't write anything for us. You have to come in, sort of an SNL type.
Yeah, I was going to say mini SNL right there.
Basically like a Saturday Night Live audition. And so I sat there and I thought, 3 characters?
This is tough.
Like, what 3 out of the 324 that I've got in my bag of tricks that I've been practicing since I was 2?
You've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, I'm like, give me an accent, give me a country, give me
anything.
a thing.
Just let me zone in a little bit.
Yeah, what president would you like me to, impersonate? So I started just going through all of these characters and voices that I had, and I ended up stringing together something like 23 or like 20 some odd characters into this 2-minute monologue. and one just rolled into the other, and one accent was let one accent or character's story would trail off and lead into the next character's story, and so that was the audition, and I ended up booking that and being able to work on the Amanda Show, doing sketch comedy and all of that. And then another crazy kind of manifestation, I guess, serendipitous event was when, growing up, I was also, all of these, the Dean Martins and all that stuff. It was Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Abbott and Costello, Burns and Allen, and Lucy and Desi. I loved comedy teams. If you go to my house, there's just, my walls are filled with Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin posters
awesome.
and all this stuff. And so when the second season of Amanda Show came along, they recast one of the cast members, and with a kid named Josh Peck, and we started, because I was already established on the show. We'd already done a season. I already had characters developed, so we would revisit those characters, and then Josh would sort of be the guy who would come in and he'd be returning the video in the video store, and then Amanda and I would be the funny characters. But as the show progressed, and they saw us kind of working together, Josh started developing more characters on the show, and then we did a sketch together, and then they started putting us together all the time. So we ended up being sort of the Tim Conway, Harvey Korman from Carol Burnett's show of the Amanda Show. And then there was one sketch where we were walking down the street and we see a shrimp, and it just says, Drake and Josh fight over a shrimp. And that's all it said in the script, And so we're like, well, what do you want us to do? And they're like, well, just fight over the shrimp. I'm like, okay.
You're like, all
right. Okay. So we're walking, and I'm like, hey, there's a shrimp, and he's like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat it. And he's like, no, but I want it. And I'm like, dude, I saw it first, I'm gonna eat it. And then, so we just fought over the shrimp, and then ended up diving towards the shrimp, and literally, physically fighting over the shrimp. And one of the producers leaned over to the executive producer of the show and said, hey, that's your next show, those two guys right there. And kind of a light bulb went off in his head, and then we got approached to do a show together, ending up being Drake and Josh. And then I get to sit back and go, whoa, dude, I get my Jerry Lewis? Like, this is so cool. I get to do a buddy comedy, I get to do My Perfect Strangers, My Bosom Buddies. All this stuff that I grew up on. And I get to be the straight man to, I got a funny man. It was so cool. It was this weird manifestation that's like, is this really real? It's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all comes together.
Yeah, and I was like, I played music on the show, and I was a singer. I'm like, I'm the Dean Martin to the Jerry Lewis. I was like, this is
too perfect,
yeah,
right?
it's too perfect.
So
Cool.
Before we jump to that, when you think about the Amanda Show, and like you have unique perspective with all the classics, right? When you think about Amanda at that time as a performer, when did you realize there was something unique there with the show and with her?
Well, I was a huge fan of Amanda just because of all that.
Yeah.
So when I was auditioning for the show, I think it was just Untitled Sketch Show. I didn't really know what it was until about the second or third callback. And when we went in to meet with Network, then we started to see, the Amanda Bynes Show, the Amanda Bynes Show. And I got like, whoa, she's a huge star to me. I loved the Amanda Show. All that, and all of her characters, like Ask Ashley and all this stuff. I was like, wait, this is really cool, So I was already an admirer of her talent, and then working with her, it was so, everything just came so naturally to her. She didn't have to ever really, she was the type of person who would be bouncing around, talking to the makeup girl while she's getting her makeup done, doing little voices, ba 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 ba, and looking like she's completely not paying attention or focused or anything, but her mind's all over the place. And then the second the cameras roll, lights are up, she's like, and blah 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 blah. And all of her dialogue's memorized. She's in her character. She's on, like, her energy levels up to 11, and she would just boom right into it, But she was just one of those people who it was like effortless, She would just show up, and it would just be like, all right, like, you never have to worry about Amanda being, the only times I ever saw her kind of, what's the line, or what's it, is when we had, a 13-hour day, and we've been doing the same sketch for 6 hours,
Right.
and
You're just fried
she's
at
been
that
in
point.
hair and we've been in hair and makeup for, and we're kind of tired. You know what I mean? But it would be like, what's my line? There was never a time when she was really off her game or anything where it seemed like forced or she had to try. It just came. Everything was so just so effortless and natural with her.
I gotcha. So how old were you when Drake and Josh came up?
I think we did the pilot when I was 15, and then I got my, I think I ended up getting, I was 15,
Okay.
because I got my license, I think, while we were on the show, so.
So when you think about it now, how did you deal with having your own show and having all this fame at such a young age?
Well, it was a lot different.
Well, no social media. We were
Yeah, I
talking
mean, we
about that
had
off
no
camera.
Instagram, no
Yep.
Twitter, no Facebook. We had none of that.
Yeah.
It was sort of old school.
It was
you
just
know?
pure and organic.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's like you want to see, you had your teen magazines
Right.
and your
You're watching Nick to check out the show.
Yeah, you didn't have YouTube, you
Right,
didn't have didn't have any of that. So, yeah, it was a totally different experience, I think, than what people in my position now are experiencing. I mean, I talk to Josh about it all the time, and I think that even just because of social media, YouTube, I don't know if it's memes or there's sharing or what it is, but I mean, I get, you know, he and I get recognized more or see stuff more about the show now than when we were on or when we were airing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But I think that's just because people are able to share and connect more.
And grew up with the show and
they grew
now
up with
have the
show,
tools.
and now they have the tools to go, oh, this is, you know, there's so many, and the show is so quotable.
Oh,
that,
no question about
you know,
it.
it's like, you know, the show is its own meme. So it's very memeable.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, but the show has just taken on a whole new life in the past couple of years than even when we were on the show.
And when,
it's sort of like I Love Lucy did in the 80s, you know, and
like
when,
a whole second life.
Yeah, it's really wild, you know, like in the 60s, 70s, nobody really, I Love Lucy, what?
You're like, yeah,
and then
okay,
all of a
sure.
sudden reruns, and
Boom.
people were being able to buy up content and rerun it. The 80s, I Love Lucy was all of a sudden this huge, massive hit again, you know? And so I don't know if that's sort of the case with this show and social media being you know, that of the 80s or whatever, but yeah, it's really interesting how it's taken on a whole new life.
Totally. Is the show streaming? Where is it?
It's on Hulu.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It doesn't have the entire
but it's got a bunch
show,
of the episodes?
but it's got a bunch of the episodes, yeah.
That's cool.
It's got tons of stuff.
So there you go, perfect example. You have a Hulu subscription, you're searching around.
Well,
like,
that's what I think it's interesting because, you know, I'll be in the airport and these kids come up to me who are
Young
10,
kids,
9, 8, and they weren't alive when the show was on and airing and all of this, and it still does air on the network and stuff, but I don't really think that, I think an 8-year-old's more apt to be watching 10-year-olds watching streaming or, you know, has their iPad at the airport.
As opposed to like 10 o'clock at night on Nickelodeon.
Exactly, you know, and more of the teenagers or something are going to be catching that as they're going to bed or something, but no, I think the kids are finding it on streaming. It's like on the you know, the
kids
section,
and then the algorithm brings it up for you, and you're good to go.
And then all of a sudden these kids are revisiting the show. And the cool thing about Drake and Josh was that we never really, you know, mentioned any pop culture icons. I mean, maybe once or twice there was, you know, maybe a Britney Spears joke or a, you know, a Kim Kardashian style joke where we would reference something that was, you know, very topical of that time. But it was, you know, maybe only a couple times. So when people go back to revisit the show, it's not dated. It's not, you're not thinking, oh, that happened in, oh, this is definitely the 2000s, or this is definitely because also the technology in the show was always fake technology, and it was always kind of futuristic technology. There was always, like my computer screen you could see from both sides, or the iPods that we had kind of did a couple cooler things than an iPad could really do, or an iPod could really do. So if you watched it today, some kid would be like, "Man, that's cool. I wish that my computer did that,
even
or my
like
iPod
the bedroom
did that."
setup you guys had.
Even the bedroom,
you know?
still looks, you know, is still something that a kid would look at and see
geeked out about
today
it,
and be like, "Oh
that's
man, that's a sick room."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they did a really good job at keeping the show really timeless.
So without social media, how did you sense that the show was starting to hit and become a big thing?
You know, it was, I don't even know. It was really just kind of just going out into the public and you know, kids coming up or fans coming up and seeing, and just, you know, saying that you dug the show and stuff. That's what the interesting thing was back when the show was on, really, I would, you know, you get recognized at Disneyland
Sure.
or places where there would obviously be like a lot of kids or something, amusement parks, movie theaters, things like that. But now it's, in the past few years, it's really everywhere. I mean, the show has really taken off to where, you know, everywhere you go. And I think it's sort of because some of the audience has grown, and also because of the streaming and also social media and all this stuff. So the tentacle, it's a lot more. But back then, you know, you know, Josh was even saying, he was like, yeah, you know, we never really got to experience, hey, we've got a hit show.
Right.
You know, like, hey, we got a big thing, because it never really was what people see it as now.
Right, it didn't blow up into this huge, massive thing.
Yeah, this sort of cult kind of iconic thing. You know, it was just, we were these kids on a Nickelodeon show, kids on a kids show, you know, and you know, it didn't seem to be the same as it is now. You know?
It's not like a Stranger Things where people are tuning in and binging it.
Yeah,
for 8 hours.
and that's what people are doing with the show now. So it's really, yeah. Back then it was kind of, we were just doing our thing and just felt like kids that had going to work, and you know, we never really felt like, oh man, we've like hit it, like we got a big hit show right now, you know.
And it was what, 3 seasons?
4 seasons.
4 seasons.
Yeah, 4 seasons and 2 movies.
2 movies, yeah. So how did things come to an end? I'm trying to remember back to how it all went
down. Like story-wise?
Well, not story-wise, but just like, why was it 4 seasons? Did you guys want to go longer than that? How did
I mean, that's just,
shake out?
you know, at the time, that was just how, you know, those young networks were working. You know, Disney Channel would do 3 seasons of a show, and that is it. Doesn't matter if it was a massive hit, doesn't matter whatever. It's like you get 3 seasons. Because also, you know, kids grow up so fast. I mean, from ones we were talking about, you know, earlier off camera about the Stranger Things kids, and the kids from It, and you know, seeing how, you know, just so 9 months or a year can make such a difference at that age. So they try and get as many episodes as they can in, and do long seasons, but short amount of them, small amount of them, so that you know, they don't have these 22-year-old kids playing high school on the network. But that was just sort of how things went until iCarly's and, you know, these other shows started to come, and they realized, wait a minute, why are we letting go of these shows that
we got something good
are turning into these hits and these cash cows, and you know, why would we only do 3 or 4 seasons of these shows? But that was just sort of the MO of that style of show.
And it seemed like the playbook, like even for Miranda, was like, all right, she's on this show, we're gonna make a show for her.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
and then same thing with you guys.
Yeah, that was, I mean, they were, you know, Dan was really good at casting, so he and very creative, so it was always, you know, he's always thinking of the next thing, and I think it was just easy for him to just kind of be seeing us performing every day and all that, and to pluck us, and then instead of going, okay, I've got this idea for a new thing, now let's do a nationwide search for the next thing and see if, and then not really get what he imagined. He'd rather just say, oh, you know what, oh, Miranda's great.
They're already
like,
in the family.
Yeah,
right
Miranda's
here.
great. Let's, you know, she's this evil little girl on this show. Let's turn her around and make her this really cool, hip, like, fun-loving, you know, completely opposite character on this other show. And, you know, kind of, he was able to, you know, work it while watching it at the same time. You know?
Definitely. So obviously you've gotten questions about doing stuff with Josh again, and it seems like to me it's like not only doing it because it worked, but doing something with somebody creatively that you really jived with. So when you think about that, what does that look like potentially down the road?
It would have to be something super creative. I mean, I wouldn't want to just do Drake and Josh.
Just run it back again.
College years, or like, you know, where are they now? I mean, I think it'd be funny, you know, I think it would be funny if there was, you know, Drake Parker and Josh Nichols older, and where are they now, kind of thing. But is that just a Jimmy Fallon sketch?
Right.
Is that just like a one thing? Is that a YouTube sketch?
Because like Saved by the Bell did a thing like that.
Right, like Saved by the Bell did that, but would Saved by the Bell work if it came back and it was the same character?
Yeah, it's a good question.
There would have to be some, some
new twist
interesting,
to it.
funny, or creative twist to it. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely want to get back together as long as it's something where the both of us go, oh, all right, the fans are going to love this, and it also kind of turns everything on its head and gives them something new and different, but still, massages that nostalgic muscle.
Absolutely, and pumps that through.
Yeah, that they're really yearning for. So.
Well, it's kind of like what they did with the Karate Kid movies, turned it into Cobra Kai.
Right.
It's like its own new thing.
Exactly, it's a new thing, but the same kind of characters of what you're still, but also I think it's like, and Fuller House did a good job of it. But I don't think that would be, like, I wouldn't want to do the Fuller House version of Drake and Josh.
I gotcha.
I don't think that would be what the fans would want.
Right. Or what you would want, too,
it
doesn't seem like you would want that either.
No, it would have to be way more fun and creative.
Well, that's like the All That thing. I know that you've not really been a fan of...
well, actually, I've been watching the show. I've been watching the show. I've kind of turned. You know what I did? You know what? Here's the thing. I'm as you can tell, I'm I'm very nostalgic, and I was a huge fan of the original All That, and so they could have put anything on, and I wasn't going to
care.
Of course, I would have. It could have been a picture of a banana and said the new All That. And I'd have been, what is this?
You're dying on the old hill.
What is this? That was just me being nostalgic and it's like when they change stuff for me at Disneyland. They're going to refabricate this ride into this new ride, and this is terrible.
Why? What are we doing?
And then I ride the ride, and I'm like,
oh, it's pretty good.
All right, that ride was awesome, But at first, you just turned off. So I was just kind of like, man, I want the old All That. But after watching the episodes, the new episodes, they're totally doing great things for the fans of the show. They've got all the old cast members. The new cast members are doing a really great job. I think it's really funny. I was the first episode, I was cracking up, and they're bringing back a lot of the characters that I loved growing up. The loud librarian and Coach Cretin, and Josh is back, and Josh Server, and it's so that's really cool to see. And they did a really, really nice passing the torch from the older cast to the newer cast. That I thought was really well done and really funny. So
that's cool.
So no,
so you've changed positions. You've turned.
I've swapped. I've changed positions. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, it could have been a picture of an egg.
It wouldn't have mattered.
And I would have been upset.
So what would surprise people the most about that time in your life in terms of the Nickelodeon stuff, the Amanda Show, Drake and Josh? What would people be surprised to learn about?
Surprised? I don't know.
The experience for you, stuff that we don't necessarily see on the outside. Even just living in that
probably
world.
Just how I think hands-on creative a lot of us were on the show. That was one of the cool things about Drake and Josh, was it was not stand here, say this, do it this way. It was very collaborative. Dan did have a clear vision and was a stickler of what he wanted. But he made it so open to us being able to say, hey, I think it'd be funny if Josh and I did this, or if I was doing a scene with Jonathan, we were able to kind of play around a bit, and they allowed Josh to direct episodes, and they allowed me to direct episodes, cool. and at such young ages to be able to have, and I mean, when you direct television, it's not just, you're not just worried about the actors and the performances. I mean, it's everything. Yeah. I mean, you are everybody. You have people asking you questions every second, every time and you got to make these decisions and everything. And for them to be able to trust us with that kind of responsibility at such a young age was really cool. But it also showed that how collaborative and much everybody trusted each other's creativity and everything at the same time. So. I think that would be the most surprising, is to just, because I don't know how much that, I mean, I know I don't know how much that happened on other shows. I know a couple of other shows some of the actors directed on iCarly and stuff like that. But I don't know, you know, definitely Drake and Josh was one of those shows where everybody kind of had a voice, and
that's great
we were able to, and I think that's what made it so, it translated so well to kind of everybody. You know, we don't just have kids, it's not a kids show. It's like everybody was able to sit down and watch the show together and enjoy it, you know, so, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
I gotcha. So when you think about the totality of your career, the stuff that you did, the stuff you're doing now, what have been the biggest challenges to overcome, and just in terms of building this thing out consistently?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just really is consistency, you know, just kind of figuring out how to keep the train rolling and not being compromised creatively, you know, just not doing something to do it, to keep it rolling, you know, not just shoveling coal in the engine just to keep the thing going, like making sure, like sifting through and finding the diamonds, you know, and going, oh, you know, okay, I'll do this, you know, or I'll do this, sounds kind of cool, or, you know, not just picking something to do it because you have the time,
or just for the check.
Yeah, or just for the check, you know? Or just for something, because I've definitely done just for the check,
sure.
and you're just sitting through 3 months of, oh, please get me out of here. Just, this isn't funny, this isn't creative, this isn't good, this dialogue, oh, I have to say this today all day long,
right.
and then it's going to go out to all these people, and I have no control over the edit, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, and all this, you know, so being able to stay consistent, but also being able to stay somewhat in control of your brand and what you put out and what you know, what the perception is that you want your audience to have of you, and that sort of thing. So, and also kind of juggling everything, all aspects of entertainment, you know, and being so indecisive, like, you know, oh, do I want to go I want to make a record, I want to go on tour, I want to go make a movie, I want to do everything, you know. And being able to pick the timing of everything and saying, okay, now I have time to sit in the studio and make a record, and that's not taking away from, you know, going over here and making a film or guesting on a television show or doing something like that. And, you know, okay, I can take time to go make this film. It's not taking away from my touring, because, you know what, I can shoot during the day and I can go to the studio at night, work on my record, and okay, that makes sense, I can do that here. And so it's just kind of juggling all of that and the timing and making sure that I can do it all. You know?
I gotcha. So what have you not done yet that you'd still like to do, entertainment-wise?
You know, I'd like to come out to New York and do some Broadway.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
To kind of just take, to be in one spot, you know, for a while.
Not going all over the place.
Yeah, because I mean, my life is in the airport. You know, I'm in a different city, different country, different state every other day.
That's a grind, man. It's a lot.
And it really is. It's the travel is in different time zones and long flights, all this. And then once you get there, you got to perform and beyond and all this. So it'd be really nice to just kind of go to the same bed every night. You know, open up your closet, all your clothes are there. You know, and
know where you actually are.
Know where you are. You know, you're like, oh, I go to the same theater. You know, every day, and this is where I go, and this is where I have my lunch, and this is where I have like that would be
routine.
It'd be nice to have a routine. Yeah, because I like routine, but it's really hard. It's really hard when your routine is just like
all over the place.
All over the place.
I feel you. So what's coming up next for you? What can people check out going forward?
Well, check out Fuego Lento. I've the new music video I just dropped about a week ago or so, a couple weeks ago, and I got a new single that's going to be coming out pretty soon with an artist called Jorge Blanco, who's a really amazing singer that I got to collaborate with, and we'll be doing some video for that, and that song will be coming out pretty soon. Then I have a lot of other music that's coming out. You got to check out, look out for, and touring. And I'll be, you know, I'm always on tour, so always check like the Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. I'm always, I do, you know, little pop-ups here and there. You know, the other day I was in town, so I just called some friends at Sam Ash and said, hey, can I do a little pop-in, and threw it up on Instagram the night before, and you know, the place was packed. Wow. And then sometimes it's, you know, other countries. So, you know, I'm all over the place. So check out Instagram. Sometimes you'll see some cool little intimate show. Sometimes you see a big show. Whatever it is, you never know.
That's awesome. Well, Drake, great to meet you, man.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.